Welcome to the Moulding Private Practice Show, where we help healthcare practitioners in private practice keep true to their purpose and build a life of mastery by providing the knowledge, skills, and tools to bring their dreams to life. In this episode of the show, we speak to Annelet Prinsloo, a music therapist, about music therapy and everything private practice management related. Annelet Prinsloo, welcome to the show. So we're really glad to have you on board.
Thank you for inviting me.
The pleasure is always ours, but I'm really looking forward to this because, we're talking about music therapy, being a music therapist and, music therapy and all of that stuff. And it's quite as I told you before the show, I didn't even know that was a profession, to be honest. And I would ask for your forgiveness for that. But I would almost venture to say not many people do. And I think you were telling us, there's probably only 60 or 70 music therapists in South Africa. Is that true?
Yes, that's true. Music therapy is still a very, very young profession compared to most of the other therapy modalities in South Africa. But worldwide, it is established, and yes, it's a very established profession if you look in the world, but unfortunately not yet in South Africa.
Okay, that's actually quite interesting.
We're still fighting and advocating for it in South Africa.
Oh, wow, that's actually quite interesting. So I want to ask, and this became a favorite question of mine, for over the years, but over the shows, is whenever you're a child, they always ask you that question. What do you want to become when you grow up? And for some reason, adults always seem to ask that question when you're very young. Normally, like before you grade 3 or something. So when people asked you that, did you say music therapist?
I didn't know that something like that existed. As you said, and you apologized for, that no apology is needed. People don't know that music therapy is a thing. I was 35 before I realized that there is such a thing as music therapy, and decided that this is something that I would like to pursue. So no, I definitely say that when I was a child.
Okay, cool. I'm glad I asked that because, as you said, and which we covered in the Moulding Health show, is that I think it gives people that are musically minded, a different profession, rather than just music teacher, music instruction, musician. My little daughter always said she wanted to become a pop star. She stopped saying that now, but like stuff like that. Is that how you kind of found it? It's like you were always musically minded, and then at some point it kind of made sense.
Yes, I never pursued music as a profession though until I became a music therapist. I was always musically minded and playing instruments as a hobby. So I never had the aspirations of becoming a performing musician. But so I did many other things. And I first qualified to become a chef, and then I qualified in drama, and I specialized in puppetry. And but it's interesting. I used music in all the avenues that I was working in, and the helping profession. It's interesting. With my puppetry, I worked in primary schools where I had a contract to do shows about child abuse in the primary schools and preschools, and so I used my music in a way of writing songs for the show, but then after the show, these kids would come to me and they would tell me the most horrific stories, and I never had the ability. I didn't feel I had the ability to help them. I was only able to refer them. So looking at what else can I qualify in to help these kids? How can I help rather than just inform and rather than just educate? And then Sorry.
No, no, I was going to say that's interesting, but please carry on.
Then I went into the hospitality industry, and I worked for a catering company who specialized in working in old age homes and helping old age homes with healthy aging and Alzheimer's and dementia patients with good diets and so on. And so I started working in these old age homes, and I started forming a relationship with the residents in these old age homes. And I used music to I would regularly go and sing and play guitar and relate to the residents, not just verbally and relationally, but also musically. And again, I wanted to, especially when I started getting more involved with the Alzheimer's and dementia patients, I wanted to become qualified to help, to do something more than just feeding and entertaining with music. So so I started looking around again for what can I do, what can I qualify myself, and how do I get the skills. And I remember my boss from that catering company was busy with his master's degree in Alzheimer's, and he started sending me. He knew that I was musically inclined, so he started sending me articles that he would come across about music therapy and how music therapy helped people with Alzheimer's and dementia and helped with healthy aging and so I would read these articles and I would get so excited, but I started looking for what music therapy, how do you do it, and then I found out I was living down in Cape Town at the stage. Then I found out that the only way to become qualified in music therapy is through the University of Pretoria, which was a master's degree. And at that stage, it was really something that I felt I needed to do. So I resigned my job and I packed up my house and I moved to Pretoria. And yes, I started becoming a student again.
Oh, wow.
And now I'm a music therapist, and I don't regret any move I made to get where I am.
I love that. Hey, I mean, I love how you said that, and I love um, almost like the non-linear nature of it, and because you always think, and we've done quite a few interviews now, and sometimes it works like that. Someone knew, actually I wanted to be in that profession, and obviously there was a different spark for them, normally grade 8 or grade 10 or something. But with you, I mean, you've lived life, you lived through many professions, and you kind of stumbled onto this thing. And for me, in many ways, it almost like makes it a lot more gratifying, and it shows you how
Yes.
life changes. Um, my wife's a clinical psychologist, but even her story, it wasn't like, she just wanted to do that and then it just happened. It's like you go through many jobs, you work through many things, you really struggle to get to that level. But, if you ask her now, that's what she wants to do. She'll never change it for anything. And I think, which is amazing. I mean, well done for doing that, because I think, there's that tenacity as well as, just the right timing, right thing.
It is all about the right timing.
Yeah, because if you weren't a caterer, you would probably never come across that, hey? I mean, like your manager wouldn't have pointed that out, and you probably would have lived your life and not known about music therapy, and that's the
Not
amazing
known
thing.
about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that.
If you think, so I matriculated in 96, and the music therapy was only started, the very first master's students in the University of Pretoria for music therapy only started in 99.
Oh, wow.
So I wouldn't have known about it going through school, or even within the first 3 years after completing school. So yes, and that's how life goes. It takes you on different journeys, and different stages and different chapters in your book of life.
Yeah, and I want to ask how difficult it was, to get into the program, because I think most healthcare professionals, they all agree on this part, because most of them, you do need a master's level degree. And, based on the fact that, not, as you said, not many universities offer that program. And secondly, I mean, the classes are limited, I would think. So did you have to, I mean, was it quite a struggle to get into the program?
Yes, yes, it's a very, very strict and very strict procedure and process that you have to go through. It's the same with psychology students, because you're working in the helping profession, you are working with people. You have to go through a very strict keuring. What's that in English? Where they choose
vetting process, like a
vetting process, a very strict vetting process. So you actually go through or musical audition where you have to show that you are musically inclined and you can make music and you can play music, you can sing, but also there are many psychological and emotional processes that you also have to go through during your studies. Part of the requirements is that you have to be in your own therapy process during your studies. It's very tough. It's very, very tough. It's absolutely life-changing, turning you inside out experience.
Well, yeah, I'm glad that collaborates the story, with the other professions as well. And so after you get your master's, do you have to go into some level of community service, or do you go straight into working in in some institution or in a hospital or something like that?
So just like I think any other profession, you have to have intern hours. So I think it was 1,000 hours of practical work that we have to have before we can register with the HPCSA. But we're very lucky that during the 2 years, lucky in the sense that it doesn't drag on after 2 years. Unlucky in the sense that the workload is immense, but during the 2 years, we also do our 1,000 hours of clinical hours. So the master's programs is very intense. It's a full-time program, and they actually tell you that you are not allowed to work during the process. You have to be able work, not in intern hours, but work as in some other job to get it as a waitress or whatever, because the workload is so huge and so much. So yes, we do our 1,000 intern hours during the 2 years.
So I would think. Sorry, I was going to say, I would think like, that's probably why the selection process is there, because I know with like occupational therapists, because they can't get the internships, where you can do the hours, they have to limit the numbers as well. And I think it's even worse for, music therapists, because, you're looking for a certain profile of person, as in they have to be musically minded, all of those things.
Yes, well, in my class, we were 4. We were 4 out of many who applied. We were 4 who were chosen to go. I think the year after me there were 6. And so it's really just a handful of people who actually are able to go through and start studying music therapy. And a lot of people don't even. We started off as 5. One of the students fell out because it's a very, very tough course, and I wouldn't advise anybody who don't feel that they have the emotional capacity or the emotional strength to do something that is so hard to even consider it.
Okay.
I think that is why the vetting process is also so strict,
Yeah.
because it does turn you inside out completely.
Yeah. I think it's the same as you mentioned, the psychologist. And I think that's why their vetting process as well is like that. We didn't quite
So
get the
strict,
formula,
yes.
but the one thing that across all of the guests, they always mentioned that it wasn't just academic. It was like they were looking for a certain type of person, and whether you
Yes.
were almost like emotionally able to deal with the program before they even allow you in the program. And I thought that's
Yes.
interesting. Um, yeah.
Well, if you don't have the ego strength, you don't have the emotional strength, then the program can break you,
Yes.
and
Exactly.
then the program can leave wounds. So rather make the vetting process very strict and prevent emotional people to go through trauma.
Yeah.
um, leaving
Self-induced.
leaving bodies behind,
Yeah.
and rather make sure that you have healthy people going through the program
Mm,
than unhealthy people and people who aren't cut out for it and
mm. That's a good way to
regretting it
put it.
afterwards.
Yeah, definitely a good way to put it. And then, so did you start working after you got the master's? I mean,
I
obviously after you
did,
got qualified. And where
yes.
did you work then?
I started working at a place called Little Eden Society. It is a home in Edenvale and Babsfontein for people with profound mental and physical disabilities. So the home is about 300 residents, from, I think the youngest was about 2 years up to in the 70s. So it's a wide range of ages, but all with profound intellectual disabilities
Wow.
and
Okay.
physical disabilities. Yeah.
That must have
Yeah.
been
So
quite difficult though, right?
yes. Yes. Well, I worked there until recently, until I started private practice.
Hmm.
Um, and it was a very tough learning process, but it was very good also. It's like you learn on the job. You got your master's, but to actually get the experience, that's not just internship experience, but that's you are doing it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain it, but it was in Afrikaans, it's a leerskool,
The
where
learning. Yeah.
you're learning while you're doing it. And
Yeah. Yeah.
it definitely, it's a good experience.
That's the thing that fascinates me about the stories of healthcare practitioners, though, is firstly, I don't know many practitioners that go straight into private practice. Because you would think that you qualified, it's like engineers, you qualified, they put you on a plant, this is what you do. Computer program is the same kind of thing. Yes, you start at a junior level or something, but healthcare practitioners, like you normally start somewhere, and you as you said, pick up the experience, and normally it's with some
Mm.
level of guidance and supervision. And it's only many years
Yes.
later that the practitioner actually says, okay, I'm ready now to go into private practice, and hopefully with some level of specialization. So for you, that seemed like it was pretty recent. Was there a certain trigger
Yes.
that caused you to go from Little Eden Society to private practice?
Um, I think Little Eden Society was the workload was very big. And I'm sorry to say that I didn't take care of myself. So I burnt out, and I had to make a change. I had to make a change in my practice, in my work life. And so I decided that something that I need was to get more variety in my client population. Um, because working with special needs full time, every week, every day, it takes a lot. It really takes a lot from you. And if you can just get the variety of client populations into your daily practice and your daily way of working, it brings the variety. It brings you know, when you're talking about your energy that's being tapped, if it's getting tapped with just the same thing over and over again, you're going to be burnt out. But when you bring in variety, it brings refreshment throughout the day, if that makes sense.
No, definitely. I mean, this is the argument for taking time off, because it's that variety,
Yes.
what's the term? Change is as good as a holiday.
Self-care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Self-care.
Yeah. Yeah.
Change
No,
is definitely as good as a holiday, and it's all part of self-care.
yeah. No. And I'm really grateful that you mentioned that, because I think that is the issue, with healthcare practitioners, especially in the early years, is to kind of figure that out. I mentioned, the clinical psychologist that we had on recently, Jeannie Cavey, and she starts at 6, by her admission, and normally, has quite a few sessions. And I asked her the same question. I asked, like, how do you not burn out, doing that? And she just said, over time, she felt, she figured out the routine that almost like kept that self-care, top of mind. So I think for every, healthcare professional, they probably, and anyone listening to this, you have to figure that part out. You have
It's
to figure out
very
when you need the
important.
breaks. You have to figure out what type of clients energize you. Just like with people, I mean, like certain people energize you and certain don't, and you just have to figure out,
Yes.
how that works. Well, I shouldn't be
Yeah.
telling a music therapist, because that's what music is about, that whole resonance and, how the instruments play
Yes.
together.
Yes. I think because if you look at the world, when we talk about burnout, when you look at the world, in other professions, I found that you can go from 9 to 5, and you can just go, but within the healthcare professions, you give so much of yourself, especially psychologically, emotionally. You give so much of yourself. You have to take time within your day to actually take a break, to recharge. I know if I was working somewhere and I would work flat and it's not a music therapy or as a therapist, you would work flat out until tea time, and then you'll have your cup of tea, and you'll work flat out until lunchtime, and you'll have your half an hour lunch, and if you were to do half an hour and then take a 10-minute break, it would be frowned upon, and then go for another half an hour and take a 10-minute break. But as a therapist, you need to do that. You need, after every session, you have to take the time to recharge yourself, to ground yourself again, so that you can be fully present for the next session. And if you don't do that, and I think a lot of us, especially when we're starting out in the profession, we forget that we need to take that time to ground ourselves again, to take a breath and prepare yourself for the next client, and not just go. And that's when burnout comes.
Yeah. And I mean, I like that, how you said that. And I think I want to emphasize the point that, I mean, you're dealing with people, and you're dealing with their, problems, and helping them. And that can't be easy. And I think, so I have a lot of respect for how you do that, because I mean, my profession, I can just shut off the laptop, hopefully don't check email and phones and all of that nonsense. But, and then it's done. But with your stuff, you're working with it, and it's in your mind, and, you're dealing with
in your
actual
mind the whole
things.
time.
Yeah, you're dealing with actual, things, and, people and events, sometimes traumatic, depending on the professional or patient that you're dealing with. I can't imagine that that's easy. So yeah, I like how you mentioned self-care, because I think that's also something that gets forgotten.
Yeah. Oh, being able to hold all of that, you need supervision, and you need your own therapy process. That is very, very important for any therapist, especially taking on so much from other people and giving so much of yourself. You need your own therapy process to deal with what comes from what you're dealing with at work. Very important.
Okay. Just to almost like, before we go into private practice itself and talking about the challenges and all of that good stuff, but we normally find, and this seemed to be a story collaborated by many practitioners, is that there's always someone that helps them in that process. It's either like a mentor, sometimes it's a supervisor, that points them around private practice. Did you have someone like that in mind as well?
In private practice?
Like,
Or
normally like shows you someone, like shows you the ropes, and it's okay if you didn't. I mean, it just seems to be,
yeah.
how.
So when I was working at Little Eden, my supervisor
Okay.
helped me very much.
Okay.
And it's very important to have supervision.
Yeah.
When I started private practice, it's easy to have somebody to help you with clients. And when you're talking about, when you're talking in supervision, you're talking about your sessions and you're talking about your clients and you're talking about transference and counter transference and what's happening in your sessions, but you don't necessarily talk about, okay, so how do I set up a private practice? That's not what the supervision, what I feel supervision is for. So it can be very, very difficult. I'm fortunate that our professional body, Sanata, is very, very supportive and supportive of the members setting up private practice. So they have a lot of information and a lot of support, and you can just ask and they will actually set up a meeting with you, and you can go sit with somebody and you can go talk and say, how do I do this? How does this work? How does ICD-10 codes work? How does procedure codes work? Music, medical funds, what do I do with this? So our professional body Sanata is very supportive in that,
Okay.
which I'm very, very thankful. Otherwise I would have been completely lost.
Okay, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that is the guide as well. That is the mentor. It's not like one person maybe, but what I want
Yes.
to get is, like how do you get to that level of private practice, and who helps you in those early stages? Because it's not, by every account, it's not trivial, because you're dealing with everything business related. So was there other challenges? And if I just point you in the direction of like how others have expressed it, it's normally getting clients is a big thing. The other one is billing, and the last one, which is what most people don't mention, is unpaid. So like you send out an invoice and now someone. Did you find those ones as well?
Yes, I can definitely say I apologize about the dogs. I'm very sorry.
problem.
I don't know why they're barking like that.
Okay.
I don't want to start shouting at them because they anyway don't listen to me.
Okay.
So private practice, getting clients, especially as a music therapist, is very, very difficult because people don't know what it is. That was, for me, the most difficult thing, is because when you say to people music therapy, they think, oh, but I have to be a musician, or what's music going to do for me, so that is the most challenging thing, is to educate people about music therapy and to advocate for the profession. And then to get the clients to actually understand, what is music therapy? Why do you need music therapy? How can music therapy help you, etc. So I'm still very much in the beginning process of private practice. I'm still very much advocating and educating, and advocating and educating, and advocating and educating, and that is basically taking up most of my time.
Okay.
I'm doing a lot of talks. I'm doing a lot of educating with various different organizations and so forth about what music therapy is. I also did a course with an online platform, which is coming out here now in end of March, for an online platform for CPD points about music therapy and what music therapy is, because that's the biggest challenge. People don't know.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because I think the experience of some of the practitioners seem to be, if you're in a center with other practitioners, that normally helps, because I think you spoke about multidisciplinary team. If you can have something like that, that's amazing. The other one is like a referral network. So if you can tie into a referral network in some form or fashion, that obviously helps. And your typical ones are like psychiatrist to psychologist, GP to dietitian, or GP to psychologist. stuff like that. I think that seems to be the other common trend.
Yes. I've also found that with music therapy, the other therapists don't know what music therapy is.
Yeah.
So that is where a lot of my education is going,
Okay.
is in telling the occupational therapists, the physiotherapists, the psychologists, the GPs, the pediatricians, the did I say psychiatrists, telling the other people in the helping professions, in the health professions, what music therapy is, what music therapy can do, and why you should refer to a music therapist.
Okay, cool. That's amazing. And on the other points, billing, was that quite easy enough for you to get around to doing?
Yeah, since I'm still very, very small, so I don't have any billing software.
Okay.
I am doing everything very old school. I type out the invoice and I send it.
Okay.
So it's still very old school. I'm still very, very small. Maybe if my practice grew and I found that I cannot handle doing things manually and by myself anymore, then I would definitely look into software or something that can help me.
Okay.
But at the moment, I don't need anything.
Okay, cool. I'm glad I asked that, and I want to get we almost close to wrapping up soon. But my last question was, something that we started asking many practitioners around this, and I think based on what you just said, I'm interested to hear the answer. And unpaids, was that because again, it's one of those things that never come up in supervision. People don't tell you that actually sometimes someone's not going to pay your invoice. Do you have any strategies around that, and do you find that that can become a problem?
I believe that it can be a problem. I haven't had, thankfully, I haven't had that problem yet. I think because I'm still very small, still very much at the phase, I haven't had that problem yet. Yes, I think when I have to cross that bridge, I will look for a lot of supervision.
Okay. Yeah. And if I can just point you in the direction that seemed to be the trend is that, and again, most healthcare practitioners, this is the model is that you want to keep the boundaries fixed and all of those things. And I think, the same with unpaids, you want to keep your rules fixed. You want to keep your, all of those things so that your clients kind of know what's kind of expected and they know what's kind of coming up. And I think the ones that have been quite successful with it, that's exactly what it is. They know what that is. They know when they need to send out reminders, all of those things.
Yes.
And whether you do that manually or using a software or however you do it, the key point seemed to be that it must just be standard and, the boundaries must be there.
Yes.
Cool. And then I think my last question was just to ask, especially as a practitioner starting out. So I told you, I mean, we've been working with practitioners now for over 8 years, and we started actually with the billing software, and then we kind of migrated into like managed service, and then now we have like a digital assistant, to assist clients. And what came out in the episodes was that practitioners like yourself would always love to use the software, but like from a pricing point of view, doesn't make sense. From a number of clients you're dealing with, maybe it doesn't make sense. Do you think there's a value proposition to almost software providers offering the software at maybe a lower price to like for practitioners that are just starting out, and then like as practitioners improve their private practice, then they would, then they maybe go into the normal subscription. Does that make sense? It's almost like not a trial period,
yes,
but
it does.
Like I don't want to say discounted because I know that's such a bad term, for practitioners because you're not allowed to discount and all of those things. But I'm almost saying like it's the same package, but it's just you're almost like catering for the fact that someone is in there, starting out their private practice.
I think for some practitioners it would be amazing. What I have found though is that a lot of, especially when you're starting out, a lot of the work that you're doing is pro bono. Just to get people to get to know who you are and what you do, and to tell other people about you, and hopefully they can become paying clients. So you really have to, and because, you know, it's difficult because even the medical aid prices for the different therapies differ so much, even though your training and everything is actually very much the same. But a reasonable price for, let's say, a psychologist, to be able to say, okay, if I had to make my budget work, this would be my income, this would be my what I would be able to pay for something like that. There is such a vast difference between what a music therapist can ask per session, between what a clinical psychologist can ask per session, that you would almost have to go on a sliding scale of what's your profession, what kind of income can you generate, and then what can you pay for something like that, if that makes sense. So I'm very much at the stage of where I say, okay, so this is what I can generate, this is how many pro bono sessions I'm doing, and how this, it's a whole budgeting thing, of course. You know, so it all depends on your clients. What kind of clients do you get? What kind of income do you get from clients? And so it's very difficult to say, okay, so I'm just starting out with a practice, I'm going to get billing software. Because if it's private practice, you don't get a monthly salary. You don't know, I'm going to have X amount of clients with X amount of income for the month, especially not when you're starting out.
Yeah, I love how you said that, and it kind of, you know, resonates with what I thought, and I think even the way you said that. And my reason for asking that is, I mean, it's you know, it's the flip side. It's like the same with your patients. You know, you know that they need the therapy in order to get better, but they need to go for the therapy. You know, like it's you know, so the same with the software and the systems. You know, so we know therapists need the software in order to get their practices better, but they need the software, you know, like, so how do you get it into their hands so that their practice can get better? And it's that, you know, that's that circle. So that's the reason I
think it's the same with every service provider. You know, you know, people need your service, but you cannot do it for free. You have to live. You know, so how to navigate that? How to navigate getting your service out there and also making a living?
Yeah, 100%.
You know, so
100%.
I think it's the quandary for everybody.
My last question, and then we're going to wrap up. Is there anything around being a music therapist or going into private practice that you thought I should have asked you that we didn't?
No. Okay. All I can say is that my biggest surprise when I started going into private practice is how hard it was to actually do it. It's hard. It's very difficult. It is not just something that you decide you're going to do and all of a sudden, I'm a successful private practice practitioner. You know, it's hard. And I think that is something that people don't say to people who are considering going into private practice. They don't tell people how hard it is and how difficult it can be.
Okay. I'm glad you mentioned that. I definitely, across, you know, like most practitioners, we definitely see that. And I think it's also, I mean, I think it takes years sometimes. It sounds crazy, you know, in terms of,
it does.
They say it takes years, you know, for you to be known and trusted with other practitioners even. You know, one would think that you have that, but you don't, because you're dealing with people. And until they can see that and, you know, work with a few clients together and see the benefit of that, especially in your profession, you know, because it's fairly new, I would say, in like almost like the mainstream thinking, it seems to be a little bit more difficult. But thanks very much for doing this. Thanks for your time. I think
thank you so much for sorry.
No, go for it.
I just want to thank you for the opportunity. It was really very nice to speak to you and to get the message across. Thank you.
No, the pleasure was all ours. And you know, on our side, we always thank practitioners like yourself for doing what you're doing, even, you know, now that you're talking about private practice. But, you know, you still keep on doing it. And it's not just your story, which we really like telling, but it seems to be the story, across many, healthcare professionals, which is the reason why we do the show. So thanks for what you do.
Thank you.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening. As always, stay tuned and we'll speak to you in the next episode.